Good evening. My name is Susan McGibbon with New England Veterans and Liberty House. Thank you for joining us tonight for another segment of Veterans Serving Veterans. And before we start tonight, I'd like to do just a little bit of housekeeping and remind folks that we're still very actively looking for the names of combat veterans coming back to Lawrence. And so if you know of a combat veteran who's coming home for good or just for a short time, you could let Jamie Melendez know, our Veteran Service Officer. You could call Counselor Mark LaPlante, or you can get in touch with NEVLH and we can make sure that that veteran gets recognized. The other little bit of housekeeping news is happy news. We finally outgrown our pantry and we're going to be getting another room, and we're going to be moving it to 599 Canal Street up onto the 6th floor. But it's going to be more spacious. It's going to allow us, we think, to have a more storage space and more refrigerated storage space. So for those of you veterans who use the pantry now, we'll give you plenty of lead time to know when we're going to be moving up to the 6th floor, but it's going to be soon. And for those of you who haven't come to the pantry yet, bring your DD-214 and you can sign up for our pantry. It's twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays, and we'd love to have you. But tonight I want to welcome a very special guest. She's someone who's been a great help to NEVLH. Her name is Joan Kulash. She's the Executive Director of Jericho Road here in Lawrence, and welcome, Joan.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I love hanging with you guys.
Yeah. We've had a not as long a history as some, but Joan has been very gracious to kind of pull up the stops when it comes to serving a veterans agency. But before we get started, and I don't even know the answer to this question, how long have you been with Jericho Road?
Oh boy, we are going on our 8th year now. Mm-hmm. We were incorporated 8 years ago in October, and became a 501c3 nonprofit. We started out of, I don't know if you know this, but we started out of the North Andover Unitarian Universalist
I did know
Church.
that.
Did you?
And I'll tell you why I know that. I'm suddenly hit with deja vu right now. As soon as Jericho Road, I think, came into being, the psychological center where I used to work, we were talking about doing a project, and I remember that Universalist Unitarian was connected with Jericho Road, and as I grow foggier and foggier in my memory, I've been thinking, why did I think that? That's why. That was your beginning.
Yeah, that was the beginning. It used to be just a little project under the church.
Exactly, exactly. I remember that exactly. Now, were you there from the beginning?
No, I didn't start it, and in fact, it's a spin-off of a Jericho Road that started in Concord. Serving Lowell nonprofits exclusively. And then Reverend Lee Blumel from the North Andover Church.
Sure.
Do you know her?
Yes, I do.
You do?
She actually did a Dear Friends sermon.
Oh,
Joe's sermon.
And that's right. That's right.
She did a lovely, wonderful woman.
Right.
Wonderful woman.
She is a wonderful woman. So she brought the concept of Jericho Road to her church. The concept being that we have a fairly wealthy community that the church is located in, that abuts another community that has challenges and is an immigrant community. And so the notion is that the church at that time would help the nonprofits that are serving that struggling community. But I'm also going to mention, because I always have to, that Jericho Road does not look at Lawrence as a city that's lacking.
That needs something.
It is an incredible city, and you and I have spoken about this before, that has such riches in the community. The very residents of the community are absolutely incredible. And so what Jericho Road believes in is helping the nonprofits to give the residents in the community a leg up so that the residents can meet their fullest potential. And one of the organizations that we've been helping is NEVLH, because of the people who you're serving. And these are the veterans that come home to the city, to their home, that need a leg up. So it's been an absolute pleasure working with you and the other nonprofits in the community.
But I think, you know, just to start off, and there's so many questions now, I'm already forgetting them before I ask, but I would say that I want to find out the, you know, the why of it, why it first, who started it, you know, how did it come into being. But I would say that there's got to be a huge difference between working with a nonprofit who's been around for a while and maybe may not have the budget or the staffing, you know, experience to do a particular job or task, than to go into a brand new startup. Because I mean, we were still, and still are, pretty green, but I think in those days we were really pretty green. We were still really flying by the seat of our pants, getting the work done. And to my recall of it was that it went fairly 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that's because I like to think we're so clever. I'm sure that's not what it was. But the thing is, what are the challenges of working with a nonprofit who's so green and doesn't have a long history?
Right.
What do you do?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say that I don't think any VLH was green, because you had a tremendous set of talents when you were working, and you were working in another nonprofit, which was a large nonprofit, the Psychological Center. So it just took our project that we were working on with you was bringing in a volunteer to just get you organized, to get the foundation going, and then you guys went at it full court press. But you're right, there are some organizations that come to us looking for help that really are so green that they don't even know what a nonprofit is responsible for doing, or they don't know how to put together a budget. They don't know the responsibilities of filling out their 990 form. So it really depends upon what they're looking for and the level of sophistication of the work that they're looking for.
Now, what do you find? I mean, is there a common theme? I mean, does this sort of nonprofit ask you to do this? Or, I mean, is there a common theme? Do you almost know what they're going to ask you for before you walk in the door?
There are a lot of common themes. The one that I was just mentioning would be just help with a 990 for the earlier organizations, and figuring out how to put together a budget and having the budget tie to their programs and how to articulate and brand is a typical theme. One of the other themes is once a nonprofit becomes more mature is strategic planning.
Sure.
And I think an ongoing theme, no matter whether you have a small nonprofit or a large nonprofit, is getting the boards focused.
Sure.
Because all boards are volunteer, and all of them just need a little bit of guidance from a facilitator to help them to consider what their governance roles are and what they should be focusing in on over the next 12 months. So we have a program that actually brings in facilitators that every year, it can be an every year thing, no matter how sophisticated the board is or not sophisticated in some cases, to consider what they want to focus in on.
And I don't mean to even sound like this, but I know that because of my experience, you know, working in nonprofits and, you know, the eventual board meetings that happen and what they do, just tell the importance of, talk about what a board really does for a nonprofit, what their role is as a group of people.
Yeah. So it really, all of the nonprofits are responsible for their finances and their budgets and working within budget. They also have legal responsibilities that they have to maintain in order to maintain their 501c3 tax-exempt status, and they have to be aware of that. Some nonprofits, especially young nonprofits, can get themselves into a lot of trouble, and they don't mean to. And could be at risk of losing their tax-exempt status. And one of the things may be everybody on the board may support a certain political candidate. And there are certain things that they can do in order to support the candidate as a board or as a nonprofit, but there are great limitations. And so they can get themselves in trouble if they go out and start campaigning for a
So part of that training would be an ethical training as well.
Ethics,
it wouldn't
yeah.
just be legalities, it would really be the legalities of ethics.
Yep, and,
All right.
and what's going to be what's required in order to make sure that there's also transparency.
Sure, yeah.
And a lot of boards are responsible for not only overseeing the budget and how people are working within budget,
Sure.
but also fundraising.
Yeah.
Some nonprofits require it, others
It's
don't.
pretty much a standard, but that shouldn't that be a standard? To my understanding,
should.
it always was. I
Yeah.
know that it doesn't always work that way,
It
but
doesn't.
that's a primary goal.
Yeah, but you know, this is where it gets really sticky because you want to bring in people who represent and understand the community, and yet some of those people may be young and just starting out, and they may not have access to big money. So the requirement of some nonprofits to, for example, donate $1,000 or more to the nonprofit in order to join a board could preclude some very talented,
Sure.
connected individuals. So just how a nonprofit discerns what the requirement is for helping with fundraising is unique to each nonprofit. You know, one of the other things I should mention that I know you're aware of is as time has gone on, it's been very, very clear and that in particular the Latino professional community and the minority professional community here in Greater Lawrence have such a talent that is needed by the nonprofit boards, and yet they have not been recruited. And so you'll look at most of the boards and they don't represent the demographic of Lawrence. So one of the things that Jericho Road is doing in partnership with the YWCA is to tap into the Latino professional community, and for those people who are interested in being on boards, to train them in board governance, and to place them
Wonderful.
on
That's
nonprofit
terrific.
boards. Yeah.
Yeah, because we're actually, that's been one of our sticking points since the beginning, is that we really do want to develop the board. And as much, and we know that we want, you know, a legal professional and someone from the, you know, faith community and, you know, someone from the medical field. And our goals are really high, and we want them to reflect the demographic in Lawrence.
Right.
You know, absolutely, we want to have some combat veterans on there as well,
Yeah.
but we understand and hope that some of those combat veterans are going to fill multiple slots on the board, and it just makes sense to me. But going back just a little bit, you know, I know you said that it was kind of a spin-off of another Jericho
Yeah.
Road. What was it that, was it just a really great idea sitting around a coffee table, or what was it? Was there an event in the church? Was it a professional volunteer that said, hey, we can do more or better? Because I know the Universalist Unitarian Church has always been a great supporter of, you know, community agencies, really doing good outreach. But what was it that started that? Because a really great idea is not what Jericho Road has become. It's got a heartbeat and it's got many hands involved. What was it? What was the impetus?
So I wasn't there so it started at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Concord, the model, the Jericho Road model. And I can only speak for the North Andover Church, and the impetus was, I think that coming from the perspective of the Unitarian Universalists,
Yeah.
where their main focus is social justice.
Right.
That is the one common theme that everybody has in that church. And so they were very, very conscious of the fact that North Andover, Boxford,
Right,
Andover
right,
are
right.
fairly well-to-do communities.
Sure.
And yet we are abutting a community that is struggling right now. And so that whole notion of social justice and how to help, they recognized that there was a plethora of phenomenal nonprofits in Lawrence, so that really knew what they were
Right.
doing. So that was taken care of. So
Great.
the decision was, let's just make sure that these nonprofits have the skills that they need in order to move forward and to keep those nonprofits strong. So by giving pro bono white-collar professional help to them was their way of helping in the mosaic of all the other nonprofits
Sure.
to make a difference in Lawrence.
How many people were there at the beginning, do you know? I mean, it had to
It
have,
started in North Andover's church. It started in the Social Action Committee. And I think there were like maybe 3 or 4 people who said,
Really?
yes, let's do this in Lawrence. This only makes sense.
Sure.
So they started a little pilot. And
Yeah.
I think they had 10 projects within a year, and the nonprofits began to really start looking for more
Yeah.
and more projects. So they decided that they should hire somebody in order to really move Jericho Road forward.
Yeah.
So, and then they became a 501c3 tax-exempt
Yeah.
nonprofit themselves.
yeah. I really think it was around that time that I came in, because I
It was.
really remember, I think the first project we talked about was a database. And that
yeah.
was on South Union Street.
Yes.
We talked about a database, and I'm not sure whatever happened with that, but, and so from there, you're in your own space now.
Well, we have been given free space by one of our nonprofit clients, Class Inc. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
I am.
They're
Just
fantastic.
barely, yep.
Yeah, they work with people with disabilities, and so we had so many projects with them that they cleaned out a little broom closet, and they gave me space, and that's where I still am.
Good.
But I'm usually not there. I'm
Yeah.
usually
You
out
are
on the
not-
road.
Yeah,
out
right.
on the Jericho Road.
Right. Now, how many people do you work with on a daily basis? How many professionals now?
So we have a database of about 200
Really?
volunteers, not all active at the
Sure.
same time. So I would say probably 60 active volunteers a year.
That's
and
a
we're
lot.
constantly trying to replenish. So I guess I should use this time to just say that if there are any professionals out in the community who are interested in helping a nonprofit by working on a small project that is discreet, and Jericho Road helps them to manage it, that they should give me a call.
All right.
And my number is, you're going to ask me?
Of course. What's your number,
My
Joan?
number is 978-604-8803.
All right, we'll say that before we finish up. Now, are there any projects, just like I asked you if there seems to be a pattern, is there any projects that you don't feel comfortable taking on? I mean, I understand it's all within the, the realm of a 501c3's mission.
Right.
Really for NEVLH, it was really just to kind of dust us off,
Right.
clean the glasses and kind of push us off the cliff. I mean,
Right.
really, that's what it was. I don't recall it, as I said, being awfully tough. I think it was, we had to look inward a lot and say, okay, is this going to be right? But it seemed like a monumental task to us because we were just too close to the forest. All we could
Right.
see was trees. Is there anything you just can't?
Help with?
Yeah.
We have said that we would not do audits.
Really? Oh, okay.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
We do not give legal opinions, but we do have lawyers come in sometimes to maybe an employment lawyer would come in and review employee handbook. And we do a lot of partnering with Lawyers Clearinghouse sometimes if it goes beyond what Jericho Road would do. We wouldn't do anything that has to do with any medical help. Architect, if it's something where there's a stamp that would perhaps hold us liable.
Right.
So, but there are very few things that we would say no to.
Yeah. Well, I can understand that for your liability, but how do people find you?
How do they find us? That's very interesting. So I would say right now it's word of mouth. I would venture to guess that most of the nonprofits in Lawrence know us. And the thing about Jericho Road Lawrence is that we are part of the community right now. It's very much of a family. And so it's really word of mouth. I oftentimes sit down with a nonprofit just to see how things are going, and then all of a sudden they'll say, you know what, I could really use help with X, Y, Z, or I need help with my board or whatever.
Now, do you, I mean, are you, with that database of about 200, how many, 60 in a year, that's about 5 a month or so, and for us there was always carryover. How many folks would you be comfortable, because my thinking is that there are going to be some folks here, they're going to see this, but I have a feeling that the more people that know Jericho Road is out there, the more are going to be after your services. So what would be a cap for you? What would be comfortable? And do people always work alone on a project? Do they team up?
Sometimes they team up. They do sometimes team up. What would be a cap? At this point, I haven't been in a situation where I feel that we can't handle it. We did hire another individual. It used to be just me on the road.
Right, I remember
and
that.
I don't know if you've met Lisbeth Noyes.
I have. Well, Joan was very good because we've known each other long enough that she sends people over when she thinks I need help.
Yeah.
Remember, I met with her several months ago.
Yes.
And
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and I think that she had some very interesting things to say
Lisbeth
about board
did.
and board developments.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, Joan shared. I called her, I think, afterwards and said, "Oh, she was really great." Yes, when we do our board development, and she said, "Well, you know what she said when she got back from meeting you? Do you remember that?"
No.
She said, "Wow."
Wow.
Wow, that's all she said. So I don't know if there was a good wow or a bad wow.
It was a very good wow.
Yeah, but she was just state of the art.
Yeah,
I mean,
she's very state
she's
of the
the only other one there
Right.
on the payroll besides you.
Yes, and so when things got to a point where I felt as though I was going to be taking things on and doing a lot of things not well,
Oh yeah, right.
that was when we hired Lisbeth.
Good.
And so she's able to take on what we call board tune-up, working with individual boards on strategic planning, sometimes getting executive coaching, board roles to goals that we were talking about. So she does a lot of individualized work with those boards, and it's a lot of hand-holding.
Yeah. Now, in order for Lisbeth to do the work with the boards, do they have to have the same process that we did? And if that's so, just tell people what they can expect, because it's not like I call up Joan and say, "Hey, you have to help me," and next Monday morning the troops arrive. It's not quite that simple.
No, it's not simple.
Yeah.
We do not want to put a volunteer on the road unless we feel that this is a good match. And even then, we want to make sure that we monitor it, because not every match is going to wind up being terrific.
Right.
So let's just take you for example. We met a couple of times just to refine specifically what it was that you needed. And then we asked you to fill out a project application request, just so that you could articulate it yourself, rather than Jericho Road putting words in your mouth.
And I would say that to anyone who's going to go through this process, is that oftentimes you really are too close to the trees.
Yeah.
And so I think that for you to be able to sit down with folks and let them use their own words to kind of sort that through. Simpler, it's harder than it sounds.
Yeah.
It's much harder than it sounds.
Absolutely.
So what's usually the process like from beginning to someone walking in the door and saying, "Okay, let's make a..."
So you fill out your request. Then I go out into the business community. I usually start with my database of volunteers to see who might be a good match. And if there's somebody who's remotely interested, I will bring them in for what we call a no obligation meeting. And at that meeting, as you know, we say it's just a meeting for everybody to kind of check one another out. There's no decisions that are going to be made then.
Right.
So if you meet a volunteer and you think, I'm not really quite sure I want to work
Right.
with this person, you don't have to say it to their face.
I've said that more than once.
Right? Exactly. And the same with a volunteer.
Right.
So we just end the meeting, and then a couple of days afterwards, I'll call you up to see what you think, and I'll call up the volunteer. If if both people are interested, we fill out a scope of work document to actually define what it is that the volunteer would be doing for you, what we would need from the nonprofit in order to get the project done. And then at that point, I will step aside as far as not being the intermediary.
Right.
But I am kind of like a helicopter parent.
Right.
How are things going? Sometimes I can kind of tell a little inflection in somebody's voice because by this point people become friends, right? And so I'll pull a little bit, you know, what's going on, how could it be better?
Right.
And if it's going along well, I'll just sort of stay in the background. And then it's very important at the end of each project, when it is done, that we celebrate face to face
Sure.
as a thank you.
Oh, I think so. And
That's
you know,
the best
I just
part,
have
right?
to say, yeah, you know, no, it was great.
Yeah.
But accomplishing those goals
Yep.
on time and with maybe a better result than we expected, that's just terrific. And I mean, especially for us, because you know that we love NEVLH and we just so, you know, are happy, honored to do the mission, that to really feel as though we took this on with our bare hands and just wrung everything we could out of it to give it a good go.
Yeah.
And we'll always be appreciative. But I have to say, just going forward, we don't have a whole lot more time, but I would say that there really is a very, there's no fingerprints on this whole approach. Joan is very good with it. And I would really, really encourage anyone who even thinks they might, the worst you're going to get is not right now or no, but if anybody thinks that they would benefit from a collaboration with Jericho Road, I mean, the potential for us for the future is great. So I guess before we end, I would just say again, why don't you tell them where you are, tell them your phone number, give them your contact information, and we'll be off to the races.
Okay, let's go then. So once again, if you're interested in volunteering through Jericho Road, or if you're a nonprofit and all of a sudden you're watching this and thinking, oh my goodness, why didn't I call Jericho Road? Please contact me. My name is Joan Kulash. My number is, you should know this by heart.
Yes. Well, no, I don't, because your speed dial.
Oh, okay, good.
Oh, you are
Put
a
us
speed
on-
dial
Put us
to
on
me.
speed dial, and that is 978-604-8803. And what we'll do is we'll sit down, we'll have a cup of coffee, and chat a little bit.
All right. Well, again, thank you for tuning into another segment of Veteran Serving Veteran. Remember to get in contact with Mark LaPlante or Jamie Melendez or our office if you have or know of a combat veteran returning to Lawrence. And again, thank you so much. Joan is an old friend, and she's a good one, and she's good at what she does. So if you think that she can help you to streamline your agency at all or take on a special task, give her a call. Okay? Thank you and good night.